Great job. Nate Fondacaro did a great job pinning them down inside the 20 on our last punt of the game. And in a minute 39, they were able to run 9 plays, got the ball close enough to attempt a 52-yard field goal. Their kicker's previous long was 36 yards. So, I don't know if too many people in the stadium thought he was going to put it through the uprights at 52 yards, but sure enough, he did, and had a little bit of wind behind him, and they worked the clock down to 3 seconds. And last play of the game, he put it through the uprights, and we lost by 3 points. So, to their credit, they did a better job in the red zone than we did. We had 4 scoring opportunities in the red zone and only came away with 10 points, and they had 2 scoring opportunities in the red zone and came away with 10 points in regulation time. So, we need to take better advantage of the scoring opportunities that we had earlier in the game, and it may have been a different outcome, but unfortunately we came up on the short end.
And you talk a little bit about, we talk about it every week, third down efficiency is so important. Only 3 of 13 on third down, which obviously sustains drives, gets you downfield, gets you opportunities in the red zone to kind of create some of those scoring opportunities as you want. What did you see? Was it offensive? Was it line breakdowns? Was it some misreads? Was it some benefit call out Maine for some good defense? A little bit of both.
Unfortunately, it was a little bit of all of the above. We had a couple plays that got called back because of penalties, which we would have had first downs. The big one was a 50-yard scramble by Jack, which would have been our 5th red zone opportunity because he ran all the way down to their 18-yard line. But we had a hold on that play, so bring it all the way back. That's a change of field position of 60 yards. And then there's a few others where, if you get to 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, which Maine was able to do more than we were, they're more makeable, obviously. Yeah. When you're at 3rd and 9 or you get sacked and now it's 3rd and 11 or something like that, they're going to be harder to make. And we were below 30% in our third down conversion on offense, and they were about 47% in their third down conversion, against our defense. So that's a big thing. That's a big factor right there.
And you mentioned, Jack filling in for Zach Bernardson was out in the ball game, wasn't able to play. And when you go to your backup quarterback who's got 4 or 5 days of practice, do you have your full third down package in? Can he run everything you want to run only with 4 or 5 days of practice?
Well, we were putting a game plan together as if Zach may play. We weren't 100% sure until we got to Thursday, maybe Friday. Zach was out there throwing the ball on Thursday, throwing on Friday. He actually suited up and did the warm-ups in pregame. So we weren't 100% sure. So we were kind of putting the game plan together. It wasn't like we cut it back significantly for the backup guy. We were thinking that they could both execute what we had in play and so on and so forth. And at times we did. At times we executed well. But then there was a few other times. And it's not one guy. It wasn't just Zach. It's not the backup quarterback. Because, again, they were playing with their backup quarterback. They actually started a different guy, number 16, until they put in number 7, and he was more of a runner, and he had some good plays keeping the sticks moving on some quarterback read and run plays for him. There was times where we dropped a pass. There was times where we had that penalty, as I mentioned. There was times where we missed a block up front, and next thing you know, we're 1st and 10 on the 18, and before Jack could almost catch the snap and get set up to throw the pass, the defensive tackle was on him because we messed up an assignment. So, we lose 11 yards on a sack play there as opposed to, hey, throw it away and lose nothing. And now it's 2nd and 10 instead of 2nd and 20.
You mentioned,
21.
Yeah. Also, without your starting quarterback, also you had some injuries up front, so you had to move some people around on the offensive line, which obviously doesn't bode well for a backup quarterback with less experience who needs more protection. Talk a little bit about the injuries you had up front.
Well, Brandon Hittner, our starting right tackle, missed his 2nd game in a row because he had a scope on one of his knees, so he missed a couple weeks. And then Ethan Greenwich, our most experienced lineman, he moved over to right tackle, and then he got a dinger in his shoulder in the first quarter, so he missed all of the second quarter, and he wasn't able to return until about midway through the third quarter. So, we missed not having Ethan out there, Brandon. And whenever you're moving guys around up front, that's the most that's the biggest position where you need the most consistency with the 5 guys up front. And now you're shuffling guys around a little bit, and guys are playing right side instead of their normal left side, and some guys are playing. We had to move when Ethan went out. We had to move Louis Chazar, our starting left guard, to right tackle. So now he's playing a position that he probably hasn't played since his sophomore year. He did play some tackle for us early in his career, but not in a couple seasons. He's usually been an inside guy. So when you start moving the pieces of the puzzle around, especially in the offensive line, you're going to miss out on some consistency.
All right, Coach, we'll finish up Maine after we come back from this. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Coach, before we get into the main game, we got a special guest that just showed up. You wanted to give a little shout out.
Yeah, we do. I definitely just walked in the door. Our man Jasper McHugh over there with his family, his mom Allison and his sisters here from Team Impact. Jasper's a guy that we brought into our program last year, and obviously he's with us again this year. So good to see you tonight, Jasper.
All right, Coach, let's talk a little bit defensively. Obviously, you hold Maine to 13 points. It's 3 more than you probably wanted to give up at the end of the when it's all said and done. But talk about, you got a couple of turnovers, did a good job of holding them down. But talk a little bit about your defense.
Yeah, our defense was getting after these guys pretty good, and the turnovers really is what kept us in the game. You know, one of the turnovers that we got on their 16-yard line going in, and that's where we scored our touchdown, going 16 yards. So the turnover game kept that game probably close. And again, if we could have gotten 1 or 2 more somewhere along the way, it could have made a difference. But you can't put the blame on our defense at all. They played well. If we hold every team down to 13 points, we expect to win the game, especially with what we've been doing in previous games, as far as putting points on the board and so on. So our defense came, and again, it was going to be one of those defensive battles in the CAA. Our guys are getting after their guys, and we got the 1 fumble and 2 interceptions. And then, unfortunately, we threw 2 interceptions ourselves, and one of them was one of the red zone opportunities that we talked about where we came up empty. So, we got to minimize those red zone errors and turnovers from our perspective. And if we can continue to get the turnovers from our defense, then we should be in pretty good shape.
And one of the things we've talked about the last couple of weeks has been more pressure on the quarterback. In this game, you're able to get 2 sacks, both from linebackers. But talk about your pressure. You feel a little bit better this week in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback, or still something you want to improve on?
A little bit, but we still need to improve on that. They got to our guy 4 times. So, both sides. We need to improve in that area as well. And, with only a 3-down defense, it's hard to get pressure with a 3-man rush. So you got to add that 4th guy, or in some cases, go blitz and bring the 5th guy and so on. But, we haven't done a ton of 6-man blitzes. A lot of times some of our 6-man pressures are more run-stopping type things because, if you do that, you better play man-to-man, and you better have enough guys that can, cover the slots and cover the guys. And we had 2 defensive backs out this game too, and I'm not putting any blame on the injury at all because, again, who's not banged up, especially this time of year in our league? So they weren't playing with their full allotment of players, and neither were we. But we had a starting corner and starting safety, Christian Benford and Terrell Vassell out. And, so how much man-to-man are you going to go in those situations just to get the pressure on the quarterback? And, it really wasn't their pass game that hurt us. It was quarterback run a little bit that converted some of those third downs to keep the sticks moving. But, again, if our defense can hold all of our future opponents to 13 points, we should feel pretty good about ourselves.
And we talk about a lot too, time of possession, how sometimes stats are important, sometimes they're not important. This is a pretty even game stat. I mean, the game was an even game. They kicked a 52-yard field goal with no time remaining, so basically it was a tie game to the last second of the game.
Right.
But that comes down to third down, getting off the field, keeping possessions, and obviously stopping them on third down and getting the ball back.
No doubt. I mean, the time of possession thing, you look at that, and we've been doing pretty well in that category for most of the year. But again, that's misleading. Sometimes teams score faster. I'd rather have points than ball control. You know what I mean? And if we can, again, continue to get the defense, if they can continue to get the turnovers that they did this past game, and we can put the ball in the end zone one more time or make the field goal that we missed. We had an opportunity to kick a 46-yard field goal before the first half, so we could have closed out the first half with 3 points. Instead, they closed out the game with 3 points, and that's kind of how it worked, and it was that close of a game.
All right, Coach, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with one of your junior safeties. Julian Williams will join us. So there's a quick break here. It's just Talking Villanova football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova football with head coach Mark Ferrante. And as you saw from the highlight there, we're joined by junior safety Julian Williams, who had 4 tackles in the game, an interception, and also a fumble recovery. So a pretty full day for your safety coach.
Yeah, no doubt. As you just heard into the lead-in, we had 3 turnovers on the day, and he's responsible for 2 of them. And he had 1 more off his hands. If we could have got that other pick, that would have been 4 turnovers for us, and that would have been awesome. But good to have you here, Julian. We appreciate you being here. And, yeah, he had a good day finding the football and getting it turned back over to our offense. So we thought we had a great shot. The interception he had put us right about midfield, and the fumble, as I mentioned in the previous segment, gave us the ball on the 16-yard line going in for the red zone score, and that's what set up our unfortunately lone touchdown of the day.
Julian, explain it to our fans a little bit. Villanova plays a 3-3-5, so we play with 5 defensive backs. Most NFL teams play with 2 corners and 2 safeties. Villanova plays with 3 safeties. So what role do you fill in that safety position?
Well, usually I play what's called the judge position. I play down in the box, more like an outside linebacker. I usually set the edge and play underneath passes. But this week, Terrell Vassell was out, so I moved back to judge, where I have played previously. basically like a free safety. Kind of depends on what formation they run, but usually I'm back playing the deep half or guarding a man or various things that free safeties do.
Yeah, Julian, quaddy roll is our free safety. He's the, if you're playing cover 3, he'd be the deep third player. And Julian's, in his normal position, is more of the strong safety, as he mentioned, backer type guy. But with Terrell out, we had to move Julian around and move some other parts around again, where you're going to hurt in consistency. When you're moving all the pawns around so much, it hurts in the consistent play, because Julian's used to playing this one spot, and then all of a sudden he's got to flip to another spot. Now, he has played it before. He is familiar with it. He knows how to play it. But now, instead of being that run defender off the edge and a support player, now, depending on what our coverage is, he could be a backside half-field defender. And, then you don't have his run game forced to be reckoned with when, he's a big guy, and he has an opportunity to come up and make more plays in the one position versus what we ended up having to play him in last week.
Julian, I want to ask you, I was reading your bio today that you played lacrosse in football in high school?
Yes, I did.
Where did you play in lacrosse?
I played midfield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you run across that a lot, coach, in recruiting?
We do find quite a few guys that are multi-sport guys, and lacrosse in certain areas of the country where we're located has gotten pretty popular. So we're probably recruiting more football lacrosse guys than we used to recruit football baseball guys. Yeah. Depending on what spring sport. And then, you always like looking for those linemen that wrestle, because it's a good hand-to-hand combat, and they got to bend and those types of things. And, they're always tough because, my older brother wrestled, and when I saw the stuff he had to go through, I'm like, I want no parts of that. that looks too tough for me. And then, obviously basketball guys, because, you're looking for the agility and things of that nature. And you didn't play basketball?
I did not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wasn't that good. My dad was a good basketball player. He said he couldn't watch more, so
he took the ball
stopped playing
and
basketball.
Put a lacrosse stick in your hand.
Speaking of your dad, I've gotten a chance to meet your mom and dad at pretty much all the games. I saw them up at Stony Brook. I saw them up at Lehigh and Temple. Talk a little bit about, you're coming from your family, Villanova being that family-type school. Was that a big attraction to you to come to Villanova?
It really was. I remember on my visit I met Coach Talley, and you hear about the Villanova and the family aspect, and that really, I really liked that. I really felt welcome.
Now, also talk about your high school, and then you went where after that? Tell everybody.
I went to Don Bosco Prep in Jersey. Mm-hmm. I ended up transferring to a prep school in Princeton called the Hun School and repeating my junior year, and then playing 2 years there, and then coming to Villanova.
Right, so he's got a kind of extra year under his belt, a year of maturity.
And that extra year, I'm sure, helped. Would you say get you stronger, get you faster, you do all those things in the weight room to give you that extra time?
Yeah, I think that was the best decision to date that I've made. That really helped me academically, athletically. It was a great choice.
And the other guy on our team, Gabe Cohen, right, also went to the Hun School, and they play the same position. So when Julian went back to the judge position, Gabe comes in and plays the spur position for us, the strong safety type position.
Julian, give us a little bit of mindset from the player's perspective. Obviously a heartbreaking loss on Saturday as you guys get ready for James Madison, who's kind of been the team in the CAA the last few years. Obviously national championship team 2 years ago, playing in the FCS championship game last year's 17-14 game to North Dakota State. What's the mindset of the defense right now?
The mindset is we're hungry. I think we're a bunch of hungry players. I think we're a bunch of physical and tough players. I think we're ready for this challenge. I think we love playing great teams.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll come out there with the enthusiasm that we've been having and even more. We're going to be home this week, and I know our guys are excited to get back on our home turf after a couple tough road losses. And why not play what's supposedly the best in the conference?
And last year's game down at James Madison, obviously it's a one-score game late in the mid-fourth quarter where you guys get the ball back with a chance. You guys did a really good job shutting them down defensively last year. Obviously that's the goal again this weekend.
Yes, it's definitely the goal.
Yeah, they have an explosive group of guys. They're always good athletes, and they have big play capabilities. So we want to make sure we knock that down and don't give them any long, cheap scores or anything like that. They have a new quarterback. They have a lot of new guys, really, from the previous 2 seasons. And the quarterback, he's a good player, mobile guy, transferred in from Pitt, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And, we just got to do a good job playing sound fundamental defense, and everyone doing their job. As a coach trainer likes to say, do your 1/11th, right? And if everyone does their job and we play assignment football, we should be okay.
Julian, with injury, where do you think you'll be playing this week?
I'm not sure. We'll see the injury report on Terrell, but wherever I can help the team, I'm willing to play.
Love that attitude, right, Coach?
Yeah, and he's been in our program now for a few years, and Julian does a good job studying the film and doing a good job playing multiple positions. So we kind of have a lot of interchangeable parts, and really with what Julian does, you probably know all 3 safety spots if you had to. If you got stuck in a pinch, maybe not put him at corner or anything like that, but Julian does a good job and has a good head for the game, and we could pretty much plug and play him wherever we need him.
That's great, Julian. The versatility you talk about is so important in this day and age with the limited numbers you have at your level, and obviously guys get nicked up and banged up. You need guys that can play multiple spots. Julian, in high school, I always asked this, did you play offense as well?
I did. I was mainly a receiver in high school.
That's great. That's why he gets those interceptions.
Yes.
Right? He got the good
so,
hands.
like they always say, he catches the ball like a D-back. He catches the ball like a receiver.
Yeah, and so does Quaddy. So our secondary has pretty good ball skills right now, and I don't know if we're leading the conference. Before this past week's game, and we did have 2 interceptions in this game, we did have the most interceptions, I believe, in the league as a team. Now JMU has a guy who's also pretty good at it. They have one guy who's picked off 3 passes and run 3 back for touchdowns. So we got to try to avoid that as well when our offense is on the field. Again, giving them those long, explosive, or cheaper scores. We want to make sure we do a good job there.
Well, Julian, we appreciate you taking some time out and joining us. Best of luck Saturday against James Madison. We're going to take a quick break. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. We'll be back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. And, Coach, we have a special guest coming to join us now, and Dean Kennefic will help me get ready for all these shows. This is a long list of statistics. Can I go?
I'll let you go.
We might go through the next break. We're joined by Brett Gordon, who obviously all Villanova fans know, great quarterback from 1998 to 2002. Third-generation quarterback. Both his grandfather and father were quarterbacks. And some people might remember because it's 16 years ago, Brett and I were he finished second for the Walter Payton Award to Tony Romo back in 2002. Third in school history with 9,639 passing yards. Owned school record for passing yards in a game with 460 versus Delaware, which was one of the greatest games in Villanova history. Was 39 of 62 for 460 and 3 touchdowns. School record for completions per game in a season, 25 in 2002. School record holder for most completions in a season, 386. And helped the Wildcats to the 2002 FCS semifinals with an 11-4 record, and we got cheated down in McNeese State. And I can say that. You can't, but I can.
Yeah, I'll let you say that. But,
Brett, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
So had Brett won that Walter Payton Award, we would have been the only school in the country to have 4 winners. And I'm convinced the only reason Brett didn't win it in '02 is because Westbrook won it in '01. And they weren't going to give it to the same school two years in a row, so they gave it to Tony Romo at Eastern Illinois. So awesome to have you here, Brett. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. And, you know, it's real funny when you go through the recruitment of Brett. He was at LaSalle College High School, and we had Coach Clausen, that was our offensive coordinator, current head coach at Wake Forest at the time, and myself and Sam Menudo and Stan Drayton was our offensive staff. And Coach Talley came in and said he really wanted this guy. And Dave was looking at film and wasn't 100% sure if we really had a spot for a 5'10" quarterback who, you know, probably was not a 4.6 40 at the time.
Not officially.
But, you know, so obviously we get Brett, and Brett comes in and had a phenomenal career for us. You just read the numbers and the stats. So, you know, he was an awesome player. It was like having another coach on the field, to be honest with you.
And it's amazing that it's 16 years ago. I'm just shocked. It seems like, I remember that Delaware game. I'm freezing in the stands, and you take us down the field. We scored late to put ourselves in the playoffs that year and then go obviously on to the FCS. I guess, Brett, what are a couple of your memories? It's been a while, but now you have 2 kids we were just talking about. But what are some of your fond memories of playing football here at Villanova?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that attracted me to Villanova in the first place was the family atmosphere that you often hear the players and people associated with the program. Because of that, I still stay in contact with a lot of the guys that I went to school with. We have a group text chain that's active daily with various things going on. So those are the main memories I think of the times in the locker room and, you know, dealing with the wins and losses and the relationships that have been developed. And then from a football perspective, obviously that run in 2002. It's something I think about often, you know, with the guys we kind of went through with, and, you know, really look at it as, you know, what could have been, you know, under, you know, if a couple circumstances had been a little bit different, but wouldn't change any of it, and, you know, treasure those relationships and those memories today.
One of those circumstances, don't mean to cut you off, Steve, was I don't know how many people know this, but Brett's throwing hand thumb was broken in the game before McNeese. So Brett had to go out there and try to perform at that level in the semifinal game against McNeese State down there with a not very functional throwing hand thumb. So go figure that out. We still came close to winning that game. And, you know, another one of my memories of Brett, this is earlier in his career, and we were talking about it before Brett came on air, his redshirt sophomore year during spring practice. You know, we had, back then, we used to always end spring practice with a spring game, a live scrimmage. You're allowed 3 live scrimmages during spring practice, your 15 days of spring. And you always want to, you know, the big schools still do it. They try to get a crowd, they bring people there, and they try to have a big game and draw the fan interest and all that. So we had a spring game, and, you know, Brett's redshirt sophomore year, last game of spring practice. So it's, you know, mid to late April is when those games occur. And Brett got hurt, blew his ACL out in the final practice of spring. Ever since that spring, we have not finished our spring practice with a spring scrimmage. And he did that in April. We opened up with Rutgers the next year at the end of August, and Brett started against Rutgers. And one of the vivid memories I have of him is his knees extended fully straight. He's still in the immobilizer. He's out on the field sitting in a chair throwing passes to his dad, who's, you know, out there as a receiver, while he's, you know, still working on his arm before he can get actively working on the recovery of his leg. And I don't know how many months later that is, April to August.
Not many.
It's not what you take today to get ready off of an ACL. And he went out and performed. And he was our opening quarterback the very next fall, which is amazing. And that just speaks to the work ethic and the determination and passion that Brett has for the game and for playing the game.
And Brett, you talk about, you know, Coach kind of went over some of the measurables that might not have added up, but obviously people talk about like it factor or drive and desire. You came from a football family, obviously, but what was it that maybe you weren't physically gifted with a lot of great talent in terms of what was it about your mindset that you said, hey, I can go out and compete at this level, not only compete, but be one of the best players in the country?
Yeah, for me it was really understanding, you know, what certain limitations were. I was never the biggest quarterback ever, obviously, and then from an athletic, I had quick feet, and I always made sure I would continue to develop those. I never had great speed, but in order to compensate for those, I had to make sure that, you know, my accuracy was top notch, that I had an understanding and could anticipate things on the field to make up for for those things. Maybe couldn't throw the ball 70 yards, but let me throw between 0 and 30, and I would put myself up against anybody. So it was really focusing on the things that I knew I could excel at, and that was preparation, that was hard work, that was setting an example, and preparing both physically and mentally going into each and every week. And then obviously being surrounded, with some great players and great friends, that allowed us to be successful.
Coach, we're going to come back with Brett for one more segment. We'll take a quick break now. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. We're joined by special guest class of 2002 former Villanova quarterback Brett Gordon. And before we went to break, Coach, you're talking about kind of Brett's intangibles. You mentioned, just kind of the preparation, the work ethic. As a coach, when you go to recruit players, you can obviously say he throws the ball 70 yards. He's 6'4". He's this or that. What do you guys look at when you're looking at complete players, especially the quarterback position? I guess that drew you guys to Brett saying, all right, maybe he doesn't measure up in the measurables, but this guy's a player.
Well, as lofty as his statistics were that you read in the first segment, he had similar stats in high school. I think for 3 years in a row as the starting quarterback over at LaSalle. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, sophomore, junior, senior year, each year you had over 30 touchdown passes. Is that close?
I believe that's correct.
I think he ended up with 93 or some touchdown passes in high school. So that's hard to do in past games at practice to complete that many touchdowns. So, he had then, just something about him, the intangibles. And, you never truly know. You try to do the best job you can with your evaluation and those types of things. And once Brett came into the program and we saw the stuff that you just mentioned, his preparation, his work ethic, his commitment and passion for the game, Brett probably, he would almost be meeting us at the door as we're coming in the morning so he can watch film before he goes to class and, cup of coffee in his hand or whatever. But, Brett just had, like I said earlier, it was like having an extra coach on the field because he not only knew what he was looking at from his preparation and so on, he could anticipate pre-snap, obviously handle things post-snap. And it was like having a coach out there, and he did a great job. And, maybe not the biggest, maybe not the strongest arm, maybe not the fastest, but he made really good decisions. And the ball came out quick. And, he wasn't sacked that much either because he did a great job reading what was going on and getting rid of the football.
And Brett, we mentioned a third-generation Villanova player, but your dad obviously was a quarterback. So I'm going to assume that you probably played quarterback from a young age, and having a dad who coached and played the position probably certainly helped you from a young age.
Yeah, there was a natural attraction to the position. From obviously the legacy within the family. I was kind of trained, if you will, at an early age. My dad coached me as young as 5th and 6th grade when I started playing football. The quarterback position I naturally kind of gravitated to. My dad did a great job instilling the fundamentals of the position from a footwork perspective, but then also preparing me mentally for, if you're going to be willing to take on that type of role and responsibility, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with it. And because of that, the expectations, from a preparation standpoint and being able to be the leader out there is really what I tried to focus on.
And you played basketball. In what position?
Point guard.
Of course.
That's what I was just going to say, because I was going to use the analogy of basketball. Like, he's a coach's son, and he's always a point guard. He's never the center, what I mean? And they got the ball in their hand. They're the quarterback in the basketball game. So it just made sense that he's a point guard and a quarterback.
Right, and I had watched him play. That was part of the evaluation as well. Because back then, as you mentioned, I can't believe it either. You said 16 years ago, and since he's graduated, so we recruited him even 4 more years earlier than that. So I can't believe it's been that long ago. But I remember going and watching him play basketball because you didn't have all this early recruitment that you have now. You're almost looking at senior film and trying to go get further evaluations through a guy who is wrestling or a guy who is playing basketball, where now it's junior film, live evaluations in summer camp, so you can, especially quarterbacks, so we can see them throw live. And then in a lot of aspects, by the time we get to senior year film on guys we're evaluating and recruiting, half the class is already committed. So it's a lot different. But I remember watching Brett play basketball, and I knew he was a point guard. That's why I brought that question up, because it goes hand in hand with being the quarterback.
And Brett, since it has been 16 years, why don't you fill in the Villanova fan base on what you've been doing since you left Villanova? Obviously, we talked a little bit about having a family and all that, but what have you been doing with your life since you left?
Sure. So from a football standpoint, leading up to this year, I'd been involved in some way, shape, or form of coaching at the high school level, primarily at LaSalle High School, where I graduated from. My dad had been the head coach there for a number of years, so I was assisting him. Have 2 wonderful children, great wife. So my kids are 9 and 6 years old right now, which are taking up a lot of my free time. And from a work standpoint, I'm in the technology space with a great software company. So things are looking up. I don't get to as many games as I'd like to due to the crazy schedules of weekends with travel sports and things with the kids. But I still stay in touch with Coach and the staff, and appreciate the access that they allow me still as a former player to stay close with what's going on.
Brett left out what he did immediately graduation. He started coaching with us briefly, and then he got a GA job at Ole Miss.
I did in 2004.
Down at Ole Miss. He had a GA job down at Ole Miss, and that's when he realized that, okay, this college profession of long hours, no pay, and those type of things, especially this far from home, wasn't for me. He decided to go out and make some money. And
that Villanova education paid off. He was smart enough to figure that out.
Exactly. And then he went out and, as he said, coached at LaSalle, coached at Imhotep for a brief time. I think you guys, how many state titles did you take your teams to?
Took them to 3, won 2.
1, 2. The teams he coached won 2 state titles out there in Hershey, PA. And then, Imhotep and LaSalle were the 2 teams he brought to the state championship.
And I often ask, I want to say former athletes, but guys that played as they get older in life, the lessons you learn playing football from a leadership perspective, from a teamwork perspective of, working with others in group projects. And how have you taken your football experience in life into your professional life, into the software business?
Yeah, so from a coaching, I'll call it coaching / leadership / management. So from a career perspective, started out in sales, then built that into a leadership role over the last 4 or 5 years. I think one of the reasons I enjoy so much about that is there's so many parallels to the sport of football, and it's all around getting a group of people, group of individuals with different skill sets, different agendas, different approaches to doing things, and kind of unifying everybody towards one common cause. That's ultimately what football taught me. It's what the time I spent coaching has taught me. And now from a business perspective, being able to do it in a little bit of a different way, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to accomplish one common goal, and the challenges of getting multiple people from different backgrounds into that common focus is something I really enjoy.
And how big is your team now? Do you have a certain number of people that work with you, under you? How's that work?
Yeah, so I have a group of 8 salespeople right now from East PA up through the New England area in the software business in our enterprise space with our company. That team might be growing a little bit, and then there's groups of engineers, inside sales folks as well. So it's a massive group effort, I should say, but all things that sports and football specifically prepared me for.
And Coach, you talk about what you want when you're going to see these 17 and 16-year-old kids now. You explain to them, you give them an example like Brett Gordon. You want to come and have a great Villanova football experience, and then when football is done, which it is for everybody at some age in their life, what they can go on and do in their professional life.
No doubt, and that's the Villanova connection. That's the network. That's the camaraderie you build. We have a network event every April around spring practice, and last year we had 30-plus Villanova former football players that came back that are similar to Brett, all out there doing really well in their respective fields, and they come in and they mentor and provide internships, and hopefully when our guys graduate and they're providing jobs for our young guys when they do graduate. So that's all that family thing. It's the network thing that Villanova always talks about, and it's real. We have, like I said, 30-plus people come back on a Tuesday or Wednesday evening to spend a couple hours with our current juniors and seniors, and that's the networking approach that we talk about and the family atmosphere that we talk about when we do go out and recruit them as their juniors and seniors in high school.
And Brett, you talked about that group text you share with some of your former teammates. Just mention some of those guys, because we're both getting real old, and I can't remember all the years running together. Who did you play with? Some of the great players.
So some of the teammates, and I'll probably leave out a few. I hope they're not all listening. But Joe Keating, Brian White, Chaz Brown, Cameron Cross, Rob Richardson, Eamon Allen, Casey Hannon, Steve Neugebauer, Jamison Young, Jason McMillian. A lot of those guys were not all, but the majority in the class of 2002, and again speaks volumes to what was put in place here and what continues to be today around the unity that we all have and the relationship still today. It's a great thing.
Your tight end from that team was on campus just recently
Matt
with his
Chilla.
family. Matt Chilla, he's out in California now.
He was giving me a hard time on that group text the other night, so I deliberately left him out.
But go ahead, Coach.
But the drive, that game, back to the Delaware game of 02, it was called the drive. We needed to get that winning touchdown to secure that victory.
And a playoff berth.
And
there was a lot riding on that drive.
And the ironic thing about that drive, and I'm not sure how many plays it was. I don't remember whether it was 6-play drive, 7-play drive, whatever it was. The funny thing about it is all the people that touched the ball on that drive were all the guys you just mentioned. Nobody that was not a senior. Everybody that had anything to do with that drive, starting with the ball in his hands and then throwing it to either handing it to Cam Cross or throwing it to Shaz or throwing it to Brian White for the eventual game-winning touchdown. They were all seniors, and so they got that team really took it upon themselves to pull out that victory.
Just didn't want it to end.
That's right.
And they went on for 3 more weeks. And Brett, we appreciate you coming by today. Thank you for all the memories you gave us over those years. What an outstanding career, and so glad to see you doing so well, staying local in the area, and you got a wonderful family, and just really proud of you as a Villanova alum. Just real proud of all you've accomplished.
All right, I appreciate you having me in tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I want to take a quick break. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Coach, I'm going to let you get it because you work with him every day, so you can give Dean a little bit of heck here on this one.
Yeah, well, you read off all those stats and all the things with Brett, but he didn't put down there that Brett was just inducted this past spring into the Villanova Hall of Fame. So, you have to be out 15 years. So on his first-time opportunity, first-time ballot, Brett's inducted in the Hall of Fame. So you got to put that out there.
And, Coach, like I was saying, after I read all that, if he's not in the Hall of Fame, then no one's in the Hall of Fame.
Right. He shouldn't be a first-time ballot with that guy, with those stats.
All right, Coach, we're going to turn our emphasis now to kind of with the bellwether in the CA over the last few years, the James Madison Dukes. They come in off a tough 27-24 loss to Elon at home last night, but they've been the marquee program in the last few years. They come to Villanova Stadium, obviously an opportunity for your team to make a statement this Saturday.
Yeah, you heard Julian when he was here. Our guys are going to be hungry to take on a James Madison opponent, and they're good. You got to give them credit. Look at what they've done the last couple seasons. They've definitely been the cream of the crop in the CAA and really in the country for that matter. Between them and North Dakota State, the last 7 national championships, maybe 8 if I'm thinking about it, have been one of those 2 teams. And, they're definitely got things going in a great direction right now. They've really amped up their facilities down there. I know you've been to their stadium, and, we've played down there multiple times over the years. And they're a good team. They're fast. They're physical. They're high-powered offense. They can score just about any way. I mentioned it in one of the earlier segments. They have a punt return for a touchdown. They have a kickoff return for a touchdown. One of their defensive backs has 3 interceptions returned for touchdowns. And, they have a transfer quarterback from Pittsburgh that can put the ball out there, and they have speedy wideouts that can run underneath it. So we got to try to, minimize the big plays that they're capable of making, and then when we're out there on offense, we got to do a good job going against their defense. They're not as scheme-oriented as some teams we play. They play more of a base-style defense. They don't blitz a ton. They don't move their linemen around it. They play good, fundamental, sound football, and we got to do a good job matching that and going in there and hanging on the football and minimizing our mistakes and minimizing our turnovers, and then go from there. But we're excited to play James Madison, especially when we have them up at our home stadium.
And you talk about a little bit, if they were underrated in any way, which is hard to be underrated with the kind of seasons they have, it's kind of their defense, because they put up 68, they score 72 here. And last year, you go down in that game last year, I think going back to it, it's a defensive battle. It's a struggle. And, you're keeping them out of the end zone. But I think they were a little bit underrated defensively certainly the last 2 years.
Yeah, because they're putting up, as you said, the points. So their offense is getting all the notoriety with the amount of points they're putting up there. But they're a good defensive team as well. They're fast to the football. They gang tackle. They do a good job from that perspective. And as I said, they have good ball hawk guys in the secondary that they had probably more picks last year than anybody in our conference. And they're probably right up there as well. Their job in that category, as I mentioned when Julian was on, we have some good guys in the secondary with good ball skills. So, it's going to be another CAA tough opponent. Last year, as you mentioned, with all the injury we had last year, it was still 16-8, down 1 score with 7.5 minutes to play. And it got out of hand. We had a turnover. They intercepted a screen pass and scored in for a touchdown. It ended up being 30-8 in the final score, so they put 2 more scores on the board in the final 7 minutes. So it made it look a little more, maybe lopsided than the game actually was going. But they're coming off a loss, so I'm sure they're going to be hungry as well. They're going to be fired up to come up here and get themselves back in their winning ways. And believe me, they've had a lot of winning ways in the last 2 seasons.
And Coach, you talk about the CAA a little bit. It's it's as the the preseason polls, which mean nothing, come out. You're picked in 5, 6, whatever you want. These guys were picked at the top. Rhode Island's picked at the bottom. Rhode Island's in first place. Maine's undefeated. It's just it's a war every weekend. And I guess the mindset that you as coaches and players have to take, it's just next Saturday.
That's right. You have to in this league. We found that out multiple times, but we found it out last year in some games. And, after the main game, after each game you go into a press conference and, some people ask you those types of questions. And preseason predictions are meaningless. They really are. Basically what people are looking at is how did they do last year? How many returning starters do they have? Okay, then they have a chance to do this. Well, Towson and Rhode Island were picked either in 10 and 12 respectively, I believe, preseason. We're like 6th, middle of the pack. We're 0-3 in the league. Yeah. Those 2 are undefeated in the league.
And New Hampshire's picked very high. They've struggled.
New Hampshire was picked right after JMU and Elon. And so, that's why you have to go out and just play the games. That's why you have to just show up and play the games and forget about the records, forget about last year's game versus if you played the team last year. We didn't play, William Mary last year. We didn't play New Hampshire last year, so we have them this year. We didn't play Stony Brook. So, forget about what you did against them last year, what they did against you last year. Forget about, what the preseason predictions say and all that stuff. Just line up and get ready for the next game and go out there and try to perform at a high level.
Coach, we're going to take one last break, and we'll be back to wrap up the show. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. So, Coach, just a few minutes here before we wrap up this week's show, and I'm going to go with a shameless plug. Since my day job, I raise money for the athletic programs. I want to talk a little bit about the Ferrante 500, a new initiative we started last year, and a little bit about what this is going to mean and how it helps your program.
Yeah, we started that, and really it was guys like Brett and Jay Strapoli and some people like that at our golf outings. We've talked over years, and, obviously everyone needs donors, and you're always looking to raise funds and so on. And, some of our younger graduates, they can't afford $10,000 at a clip or $50,000 to get their name on a room in our new facility or something like that. So in talking with Brett and Jay and those guys, I'm like, why don't we try to do something like, how about a football 500 where we can get 500 people to donate $500 for a 5-year commitment, and that would bring in money that would help us for not really the needs. We're not talking about a capital project. We're not building a new building. We're not looking for money for computer software that you need to do your editing system and so on, and headsets that you need to have to run a game. It's for more of the wants. Like last year we purchased the white helmets, and a lot of people kind of think the white helmets are pretty cool, and maybe get a different style jersey. A lot of people have gone to some of those gray jerseys, and just really for more of the perks and the things to make our student athletes in our program a little more memorable experience when they're there. And if we have something like that coming in, so we launched that at our golf outing last spring. 20 or 30 guys signed up right then and there, and now we're almost at 100 donors for the they're calling it the Football Ferrante 500, which
I like. You don't want to be out there in the limelight, but it's got a nice ring to it.
So we're in the process of doing that, and it's just a way of help supporting the program to bring in, as I said, a little extra income for some things that we might want to do with the players, like a white helmet. We're not going to get another white helmet, obviously, but those types of things to just help with more of the day-to-day wants, and just to help the student athletes, like I said, more memorable experience when they're in our program.
And I think it's a nice way to give back to a program and an experience that you had over your 4 years that makes you feel connected and keeps you connected to the program.
Right. And it's something that will help us, obviously, but also help keep them close to, like you said, to the program. Like this weekend, they're going to have those people that are 500 donors up in the O'Day Lounge during the game, and bring back the alumni groups and those types of things, and just have a great experience, and have them have an opportunity to give back at some way. Capacity to the program.
And Coach, another thing you have going this weekend is it's youth weekend,
right?
Youth football weekend at the stadium. Fall break starts on Friday. Hopefully all the students will stay around, see a heck of a football game on Saturday before they head home for their fall break. Talk a little bit about how important it is to engage the youth at football here at Villanova.
Yeah, we started advertising that in the springtime. I actually talked to a few of the local organizations of the Pop Warner and youth football leagues in the area. Some of them actually said they're going to adjust their game schedules to try to get some of their teams to attend our game. So it's awesome. Yeah, keep the kids interested. Keep them involved. They're going to form a tunnel when the team comes running out of where we come out through the smoke and the blow up there. The youth guys will be right there on the sideline. We're encouraging them all to wear their jerseys to come to the game, so you can see who's with what program and what team and so on. And just get them interested. We actually, when we went to Stony Brook, they had a little youth program going as well. We saw a couple of their guys high-fiving our guys as we were coming out for halftime before the game. So just to keep the game of football interested at the younger level.
All right, Coach, that wraps up Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante here at the Green Turtle. Thanks to Joe Gaines and studio engineer Ryan Lennox. This Saturday, Cats take on the JMU Dukes. Game time is 1 o'clock. We'll be on the air with our pregame show at 12:45, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks. We've got a bye week next week, so we'll be back in 2 weeks for another Talking Villanova Football show. No show next Tuesday, as I mentioned. For head coach Mark Ferrante, this is Steve Pannone. Have a good night. This is 610 ESPN.